Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Robert Adams, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Captain David Battelle. We warmly welcome the family of Lieutenant Elvas Elliott Jenkins, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had done for us and what they had endured. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who've given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Good evening. Today we remember and pay tribute to Lieutenant Elvas Elliott Jenkins. Elvas Jenkins was born on the 6th of June 1888 in Ararat, Victoria, the eldest of 7 children born to James Jenkins, who worked on the local settlement board, and his wife Bertha. Elvas received his education at Fairfield State School, where he was a member of the cadets. He went on to undertake an apprenticeship with Melbourne printing firm McCarran Bird & Co. in 1903. In 1910, Elvas left the firm to study theology at Queen's College in Melbourne. There, he was a keen sportsman participating in boxing and lacrosse. During his time at university, he met Jenny Reed, a medicine student, and the two became engaged. In his 4th year of university, Elvas took a break from his studies and moved to the country. He obtained an irrigation block in the Bumwam district and was working on the land at the time of the outbreak of war in 1914. Elvas Jenkins was amongst the first in his community to enlist, joining the Australian Imperial Force on the 17th of September 1914. Assigned to the 2nd Field Company Engineers, he began a short period of training in Australia before embarking for active service from Melbourne on the 21st of October. Sailing on board the troop ship Oviedo, Sapper Jenkins arrived in Egypt in early December 1914 and continued training with his unit. He landed on Gallipoli on the 25th of April 1915 and was immediately engaged in the construction of trenches, saps, roads and piers. After the initial landing, Jenkins and his comrades helped establish the Anzac lines. According to family legend, he was nearly killed in May when a piece of shrapnel hit him directly in the chest, but a Bible in his breast pocket saved him from death or injury. After this close escape, he was promoted to 2nd Corporal in July before taking on a temporary position as Company Quartermaster Sergeant in August. His promotion came in the wake of the failed August offensives, after which point an unbreakable stalemate developed on the peninsula. In October, he was promoted to Corporal, after which time he and his comrades spent an uneventful period in the trenches. His unit was then evacuated from the peninsula in December when the Allies decided to abandon the campaign. After the evacuation, Jenkins' units returned to Egypt. He continued training in camp before being transferred to the 1st Pioneer Battalion in early March 1916. His new unit was comprised of men who were trained both as infantry and as engineers and who could serve in either capacity. Jenkins was commissioned to the rank of 2nd Lieutenant shortly after joining his new unit and embarked for the Western Front later that month. Jenkins' unit arrived in the French port city of Marseille in early April. From there, he and his comrades were sent north to the Somme Valley, which had been the site of bloody fighting since 1914. Jenkins was granted a period of leave before taking part in the fighting. He rejoined his unit on the 2nd of June 1916 and was promoted to Lieutenant 2 weeks later. Lieutenant Jenkins and his men were deployed into the vicinity of Pozières soon after, where plans for a major attack were underway. His unit was tasked with digging new jumping-off trenches and removing obstructions from other trenches and saps. The men were continuing this work on the 19th of July when Lieutenant Jenkins was hit by enemy fire, sustaining his wounds to his neck and chest. He was immediately attended to, but little could be done for him, and he died of wounds later that day. He was buried near where he fell, and today lies at Danzig Alley British Cemetery beneath an inscription chosen by his grieving family: "A life nobly lived and bravely ended." Lieutenant Elvas Jenkins was 28 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my right, amongst 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. And we now remember Lieutenant Elvas Elliott Jenkins, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
If you are able, please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we who are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man laying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over, but in Australia they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorials Development Project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.